Now we have made a slip knot, and there's a loop on your hook. And this stitch is not a stitch yet. It's an active stitch, and it's not, if you're doing a stitch count, this is not counted. And it's the same thing for your slip knot. So if you look closer at your knot, this knot is also not counted as a stitch. It's just the beginning of your project. And what we're going to do now is to do a chain stitch, and that will make your first stitch. To do a chain stitch, you hold your yarn with the middle finger and your thumb, and also raise up your index finger to create a good tension, and just make sure that the yarn is not sloppy. You'll move around. And we've done yarn over, so now we're doing a yarn over. And you slide this yarn over through the loop. And here is our first chain stitch. We'll do it again, a second one. Yarn over, slide it through the loop. And here now we have our second chain stitch. Now we'll do our third one. Again, yarn over and slide it through the loop. So now if you look at the stitches we make, chain stitches, they look like V's. So if you see it here, this is the V shape. And that is a stitch. If you want to look at how many stitches you make, you can look at this way. So we have our first one, second one, and the third one. And this stitch that I just pull my hook out is not counted. It's still an active stitch. It's not just don't count it in your stitch count. And when you are doing any stitch with a crochet hook, just make sure that the loop, the active stitch on your hook is not too tight, like this. It's choking your hook. And it's not so big that you're going to have a very uneven stitch if you do it this way. So the reason why the hook have different sizes and they have different kind of diameters over here is for you to control the size of your loop. And so you want to tighten it up, but not choking your hook. Tighten it up to the diameter of your hook and yarn over and slide it through. And you do not want to use the diameter of the throat, because throat usually has a much smaller diameter. You want to make sure your loop is measured in a diameter around this part of your hook. And this is how we make chain stitch. Okay, so now we've learned how to do chain stitches, and it's time for some homework. If you have some scrap yarn in your stash, that's any DK weight yarn or even worsted weight yarn, use them. Just use a short piece of scrap. I have 50 gram or 30 gram balls here, and I chain the whole thing up, but it's okay. You don't have to feel the pressure that you need to do this much. Just make sure you have enough strand, long enough that you can do at least like 50 chain stitches. So you make your slip knot and just continue your chain stitches and continue your chain until you finish whatever amount that you are able to practice. But I do really encourage you to practice as much as you can, because this is the basic of all the stitches we're going to talk about later. And the more comfortable you're doing chain stitch, the faster and relaxed and better that you will be doing for all the other stitches that we're going to introduce you later. So just make sure that you give yourself some time to practice this stitch. So we've been chaining our DK weight yarn and also holding 2 strands of fingering weight and make them thicker yarn. So they're like a chain ball yarn. And this is chain stitches are a very good method if you want to thicken up a yarn. So for example, I have here, which is a sock blank at the beginning. So it look like this. I will unravel it for you. You see, this is a gradient sock blank. It's knitted in order to be dyed into a gradient yarn. And so if you unravel this knitted piece, it's just a regular ball of yarn, but it's just a gradient yarn that you can use. And the problem is when this sock blank is a fingering weight and you like to knit a hat instead of a pair of socks, then you'll probably use it until the middle and your hat is done. So you don't get to use all this color, which is very sad. And the method that you can use is get your crochet hook and chain up the whole blank, and you'll get a chain ball that is a gradient worsted to chunky weight yarn, and you can use it to make hat like this. I use it for knitting, but of course you can use it for a crochet hat. And obviously you will need to change your hook. So if I, for example, if I use a 3mm hook to chain the blank, then I will need maybe a 6mm or even larger hooks to make a project with it. But it will be a very fast project. And yeah, and this pattern is actually designed by Tabitha Hedrick, and it's called Isle Light. So it's a hat, and I used up the whole blank from tip to end, and the remaining yarns I made into a pom-pom. So nothing wasted, everything is used, and you got a gradient hat. If you just so happen to have a fingering weight blank, this is some trick you can do. Practice your chain and get the project.